Hi everyone, and welcome to today's session where we're taking a look at the update around our SMSF Foundations course. Each year we go through and naturally spend a lot of time looking at the changes from a technical and regulatory perspective, which of course we do that on an ongoing basis as part of our changing face of SMSF through our CPD packages. And I'm joined by Tim Miller today, our Technical and Education Manager. Welcome, Tim.
Aaron, always a pleasure to join you.
But this year, we have a couple of other little things. Obviously, with Tim coming on board, this update takes on more meaning than it probably has in the last couple of years. So in terms of what we're going to be covering in today's session, we have a range of things. And I guess most importantly, we're going to start off and talk about the repositioning of this course. And importantly, it does mean we are making some changes to it, not dramatic changes, but most importantly, there is a change around the branding of the course and therefore what occurs from a mapping point of view. And then I'll get Tim to talk a little bit about the journey that we're going on around our course content. And not only our course content, but our CPD and education content more broadly. We'll talk through the roadmap of that. And then what we're going to do in the second half is obviously go in and have a look at the course in more detail. We are still working through the changes for 1 July, but to give you context around, if you haven't seen the course before, around how that registration process works, how you can access the course, and give you, in essence, a live demonstration of it. And then we'll wrap up ultimately with some details around the pricing and the benefits that you get from that course. So let's sort of kick off with this course rebrand. And Tim, one of the things when you've come on board in the role as SMSF Technical and Education Manager, and I gave you the mandate in essence to look at our CPD content and really assess where we are, I should say, and where we ultimately want to go to. And one of the things very quickly you identified was the fact that the positioning of our Foundations course probably wasn't quite right. So I might get you to elaborate a little bit and therefore why we're shifting to, in essence, this rebrand of an SMSF Essentials course.
Yeah, look, thanks for that, Aaron. I guess what it comes down to is that through my own SMSF journey, I've been involved and engaged with a number of other partners with regards to the writing of SMSF content and reviewing existing content and delivering obviously a lot of content as well. And what was pretty clear to me from the outset of reviewing the material in light of the changes that had been occurring in the super space was that we'd set the level of this course well and truly above that of what I would consider that foundation-based knowledge element, and it was really more about trying to reflect what this course actually stood for, rather than say, okay, well, you know, let's rip everything out of this one. Let's actually reflect it as to what it actually is, which is that essential knowledge that those that want to be in the SMSF space and practice in this area, the content of this course reflects that.
Yeah, and I think it was the old adage, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, wasn't it? Because we do have a position in the market that this actually suits,
yes,
as distinct from those that might need a genuine foundation level of training, but equally those that want a pathway towards specialization. And I guess in our own minds, we were thinking potentially in a 2-course model, but you'll see shortly how that actually changes. So in the context of the course itself, and this is relevant for existing users and then also those students that might come in the future, is we are maintaining the existing format. So the 7 modules that are there are obviously being retained, but what we are doing is we're making a few minor changes to that CPD structure and therefore the total hours that sit behind it. So Tim, I might get you again just to elaborate a little bit more about what those changes actually mean from this Essentials course.
Yeah, look, I think the first thing probably is to recognise that we are, and when I say we, I mean as an industry, we're moving away from the old FASEA model, and we've got new terminology. So that's reflected here as legislated CPD hours, and so what we're trying to benchmark the course against is a number of different competencies, and as part of that shift away with this concept of legislated CPD hours, you know, they've redefined the education space has redefined what a lot of the core competency elements are. So you see their technical competence, regulatory, and then the tax financial advice. And so it's given us a great opportunity to define what parts of our course fit under to what sort of CPD model. And whilst it's clearly obvious there from that table that each chapter or each module covers off on every element, you know, we've gone to the degree of trying to break each down into how much of the hours is represented by that. But what we've done is we've sort of taken a step with the first module, which is our about super and about SMSF. We've enhanced that a little bit just to incorporate a little bit more about the differences between the SMSF and the super industry, just to highlight some of the key reasons why somebody might be coming in and looking in the SMSF industry. We've also then determined that modules like Module 5, which is our taxation module, was a very heavy module under the existing arrangement, and a lot of that content is what we would actually classify as advanced. And I don't want to give away too many sort of secrets there, but we've sort of stripped that back to say, okay, well, what are the essential taxation bits of information that you actually need to be able to operate in this space, and let's deliver that and provide on that in this course.
Yeah, and I think again, you know, it becomes very easy as we are a content-rich organization that you can kind of add this in and add this in here and add this in here, and with one course, there's always a line that needs to be drawn. So one of the things, obviously, bringing you into the role, Tim, is that you give an entirely different lens to this that allows us to go, well, actually, let's stop that there, and let's maybe shift some content from here to here, and the reasons why are because of this, and we maybe need to prop up some content here that because there are elements to this that were at foundations, there are some that are at essentials, and there are some that are advanced. So it did have a bit of a complex, this course ultimately. And that I think is natural because of the evolution of the number of students that have gone through, and therefore, and the organizations that we work with. So again, they're getting this distinction right in the buckets for education that we provide becomes crucial, because it gives a very clear description for someone looking to find out who needs it. But equally, when we work with organizations, and I know, Tim, there's a number of larger organizations that we're working with that are really looking for that distinction and clarity. And I might jump to the next slide now as well, because this is, in essence, where we're working towards. And it's that we're calling it our starter, smarter, smartest model, where we've gone from, in essence, having one course, which was our foundations course that had the complex, like I said, it didn't quite know what it was, to now coming out with, in essence, 3 different courses that have very clear and distinct target audiences. And we'll create personas around these to make sure that you are very clear in what course you're wanting to do, and what path you're heading down to get you towards where your ultimate goal is as well.
Yeah, and I'll probably add to that, Aaron, that with the redesign is we've provided the capacity for these modules, particularly in the essentials, and as we're going to talk about the advanced as well very briefly, the capacity for topics to be considered as a standalone topic. So, you know, you'll have very similar subject titles with regards to the flow of these courses, but you'll be able to, for example, pick a subject like taxation and undertake just that module, and know that it's not necessary to do everything else, but ideally it's preferable to do everything together.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, so that's a really good point to make, because talking about contributions at a foundations level is some basic principles.
Yep.
Into essentials that might talk to things like, bring forward rules and maybe carry forwards and that sort of stuff. But when you're getting into advanced contributions, you're really drilling down into tax rulings, small business concessions, and other contribution things that you'll come across, of course, but they are built to a specialist level of knowledge and really looking at the way in which you can critically assess and analyze scenarios so they can be applied to your clients. And we're naturally working with the SMSF Association as an accredited educator, both from a Foundations and Essentials course point of view, and some opportunities that may arise out the back of that, but equally when we look to our advanced course and providing some recognition of prior learning from within our Essentials course, but then also some potential credits or mapping and knowledge, what's the word I'm after here, Tim? So knowledge recognition, it would be in respect to the completion of your SSA as well.
Yeah, and look, and I think what we sometimes forget, Aaron, because we do it all day, every day, is we talk about the complex on a fairly regular basis. But for most SMSF practitioners, and I've worked in a number of administration firms, you don't have clients dying every day. You don't have the obscure style contributions occurring every day. So they might be a once a year, twice a year type event particularly for a lot of small practitioners. And so you don't want to cloud yourself with knowledge that's unnecessary at the time, but you want to be able to have access to it when you need it. And that's really what we're trying to build here.
Yeah. So to give everyone some context, I guess, in terms of what this course roadmap looks like, because quite clearly there is a number of things that we need to do. So first and foremost here, we are working through a process at the moment of this course rebrand. So as I said, our Foundations course is renamed, in essence, our SMSF Essentials course. So as part of the content refresh we're doing at the moment, there's the changes in there. There's video and audio files that we've got, Tim. So we're sort of picking the eyes out of it at the moment and changes on the website. So a lot of that, you'll see this happen now, but you also see it sort of go through into the early part of August. And then that will, in essence, carry on and allow people to continue to access that course and be positioned accordingly. Whilst we're working on that, Tim is at the same time, of course, going through the content and stipulating what is relevant and therefore going to be accessible through our SMSF Foundations course. So one of the things, Tim, that you've said is that we want to ensure that a Foundations course is pitched at about 10, 12 hours worth of content. So part of your journey here is identifying the content that will be relevant to that Foundations course. And then obviously we go through that build phase, which we expect to sort of be through to the mid-ish of October.
Yeah, correct. And look, I think from an experience point of view, that's the content of that course is the one that I've spent a large amount of time in admin firms, particularly delivering. And so I'm really comfortable with that from a timeframe point of view as to what you need and what are the key focus areas that staff in this space require to have the knowledge to do their jobs.
Yeah, and then the final one, of course, is our SMSF Advanced course, and we don't expect to have that until probably February next year. But one of the things that we will be doing is, because there are going to be a number of modules attached to this, we will be, once we've sort of bedded down that Foundations course and it's reset, ready to go, is we will be modularizing, releasing by module, the content of the advanced course. So we know that people, literally, if you're signing up to the advanced course, you're going to need some time to work through it. So we expect to be developing and then arguably dripping out this content, Tim, as we go through and we look at topics like insurance or LRBAs and other aspects that are more specific and unique to that. And then the expectation is that we'll be able to bundle that together. So we have content already that, as Tim touched on earlier, the taxation module, there are elements that we've already got in that. There's parts that we'll be expanding out. So again, you'll start to follow that journey as we work through it in this second half of the calendar year here. and will naturally keep you up to date around the progression of those modules and then therefore the launch of the course. So Tim, is there anything else you wanted to sort of add around that roadmap? I guess the three-tiered approach that we're having to that course material.
Yeah, look, I think probably the only thing I'd add to it, Aaron, is that the basis of the foundations and essentials will largely moving forward remain the same, with just updates based on legislative updates and things, whereas the advanced course is really an ever-evolving subject matter, because it will often be driven by the strategies of the day as well, and significant legislative changes. So we see that as being a really fluid course with your core advanced items that have been around for the last 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's go now in and I guess drill into the SMSF Essentials course in a little bit more detail. So if you haven't seen or understood this course before, it is made up of 7 modules. So it takes you on what we call the journey, the life cycle of self-managed super funds, which is the most common way, obviously, to think about these things. So it is about the introduction to super, how self-managed super funds fit into that. We go into the investment rules, and then, as you can see there on the screen, there are a number of modules into pensions and tax and statutory reporting and so forth. So Tim's, like I said, over the first sort of 4 or 5 months of his journey with Smarter SMSF has delved into this and spent a lot of time not only updating it to reflect the current laws, and we've seen, I guess, continued contribution rule changes, and we think about the gnarly rules and those sorts of things that, again, we spend a lot of time on talking to on a quarterly basis. So we can, in essence, lift that information and then make sure that that's readily available and position it accordingly across not only the Essentials course, but ultimately where it fits in our suite of products going forward. So in terms of then who the course is relevant for, Tim, I might get you to talk about this, because this is obviously something now that is important from a repositioning point of view when we think about the Essentials course.
Yeah, and look, and I think that, again, this the relevancy is always, as I say, horses for courses, and probably not deliberately using the word courses there, but it's the suitability is often going to be based on the individual's needs. So where we would see this course being suitable is certainly for those that we would consider in that intermediate knowledge area from an SMSF point of view. Now we know through our association with the SMSF Association that to be an SMSF Association specialist, you need to have a certain number of years worth of experience within the industry. And so we actually see that this Essentials course is in many respects a great pathway course for those that are wanting to trial and test themselves against that SSA knowledge base. And so this will certainly put people in on the right trajectory to achieve SSA specialization as far as the SMSF Association is concerned. But similarly, those in the accounting industry that are potentially going down either the CPA or CA model, then it also gives them the knowledge, the essential knowledge that they need from the SMSF point of view. Similarly, once those people have hit that specialist target, so once we've got to the point where we meet the criteria to be a specialist, then ultimately this becomes what I consider to be a bit of a refresher course. So, because of the currency, and we're using that word a lot there, because of the currency of the information contained within the course and the frequency in which the superannuation laws have changed, and no doubt we've spoken about this before, but with this concept of the objective of superannuation, the mystery behind whatever that might actually be, is that we will see again future changes made to the superannuation space. So you want to make sure that you're continually refreshing your knowledge, and we know that even as specialists, how regularly you come across certain matters will dictate your ability to keep up to date with things. So there's that whole element around pathways to specialization and then maintaining specialist knowledge along the way.
So Tim, just on that then,
Yep.
so I think one of the reasons why we find that this this course in its current context is still relevant is because of the fact that we have what we call the general practitioner, and the general practitioner has exposure to SMSFs, but it's not, you know, each and every day. And that applies to accountants, but it equally applies to financial advisors. So where this course, for example, is on an approved course list for an advisor to have to complete via that APL, or AFSL, I should say. So they need to satisfy and have completed a course around SMSFs to be able to then advise on SMSFs. So it is about pathways, but it is also about making sure that it's beyond foundations level, because the ability to provide advice in some way, and that could be tax advice and it could be financial product advice when we think about contributions and pensions. So, but it doesn't need to be at a specialist level, meant that this course actually fits a role for the industry right now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, we've seen the progression through RG146 and FASEA and all these other sorts of professional standards that we've sort of addressed. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the SMSF content area hasn't changed, or knowledge area hasn't changed throughout there. And I think that's where potentially the SMSF Association have been great at benchmarking those knowledge areas that people like yourself and I can maintain our standard from what we're trying to deliver. And that's what this course I think does, is maintains that sort of level.
Yep, absolutely.
And then from those that it's not suitable for, it, you know, you're always sort of mindful when you're trying to express who shouldn't undertake the course, because you want to be able to promote it to anyone that is wanting to advance their knowledge. But for those new starters or those that are exclusively in a processing role that perhaps don't have the superannuation knowledge, then they're going to find this course quite confronting, in the sense that there's a lot of terminology and things that, yes, they can look up and review what it means. But it does rely a little bit on superannuation jargon, and also appreciates a foundation knowledge in existence. So whilst we do have some modules that effectively will be advantageous to new starters, because they expand on the concept of foundation knowledge, for most part, we'll be starting to delve into areas that you do need that sort of time in industry to have a greater appreciation for. So, you know, it again will be a little bit of you know, advancing certain staff members relatively quickly. Then this will be ideal, but for most people as they come in, it's not going to be the appropriate course for them.
But building that pathway most importantly for them. So the idea is that people will be able to move through the courses to actually build up that knowledge over time.
Correct.
So we're trying to define those clear pathways, and noting, which is why we put the mountain on there before, it's not sort of going down a highway at 100 kilometers an hour. It's actually, there is a bit of a climb, and you're going to go through the peaks and troughs of your technical knowledge and the changes that occur, but that is part of working within an ever-changing superannuation landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other one that we put there is, obviously it's not a quick fix. So from a CPD point of view, so again we put 30 June there, but people's CPD years can be all sorts of weird and wonderful years. But it's not as a complete package. It's not a solution for quick CPD, as much as it will give you or provide you with substantial CPD. It is more that built out process of undertaking the course over a period of time. However, again, in suggesting the way that we're heading, where we're going to modularize, or where we have modularized a lot of this content, there will be opportunities where someone says, look, I need to get a couple of hours up, and here's a quick way to do that, to be able to undertake a specific subject on potentially a knowledge gap. And I think that's the key benefit. As I've highlighted at the bottom there, is that the key benefit of this course is to fill those knowledge gaps. So, you know, in effect, it's that concept of, you know, where is your knowledge base? You know, what information are you comfortable with and what don't you have, and how can we fill that gap? And we feel that the Essentials course certainly fills that gap and leads you down a path of wanting more.
Yeah, and I think to that, in terms of the benefits here. I mean, they become very clear as you start to work through this. So it is knowledge. It is designed in a way to keep you up to date. So you've got both Tim and myself, obviously now having spent a lot of time within the course, me having originally built it, but then Tim's input naturally since he's moved into the role. The other thing is, and I think we've touched on this a couple of times, Tim, is we do have what we call our add-on subscription. So you do get the ability to access the course. You do get 4 months to be able to complete the course. But the reality is that if you buy the annual update, you can use this as a resource tool to tap into the changes that we make on an ongoing basis. So this doesn't get changed once a year. If there are changes that are material enough, and a good example of this was the contributions module in January of this year, where we saw changes to the age limits around downsizer contributions. So we use our changing face of SMSF, which we deliver quarterly, to actually do a bit of an oversee of our course content to go, well, is there anything in here that we actually need to plug in and update in a more timely fashion than each and every year? And we do our change log that explains what changes we make within those modules. And then naturally you can go in and review that change log. And if you need to, then the benefit of the add-on is you can go in and update your knowledge around that particular piece of content. The other thing, of course, is flexibility. This e-learning environment gives you the opportunity to do and complete this in your own time and your own pace. So we will work you through that. You, of course, have access to support, so you can ask questions. We've even been sort of dabbling a little bit in the AI space, so whether we can actually give you some AI support around the content that we have within the modules to help you better understand and analyze, what we probably call level 1 support, and then maybe sort of bringing that up the food chain into level 2 support. So Tim and I sort of maybe drilling down on those further. And then from a CPD point of view, of course, you have the credited hours that would be relevant upon successful completion as well. So just before we jump into the course, from a student journey point of view, so what happens when you sign up? So once you sign up, you will get access to the platform. And we say platform because it gives you, once you have a login, that login is universally applied, whether you want to be able to access that course content, whether you have other subscriptions, whether you want to be able to order documents, that login is fully accessible for you to be able to access the Smarter SMSF platform. We have a user guide, and that user guide will take you through the journey to accessing the course, how you can navigate around, and we'll spend a little bit of time on the course shortly. We've also set up a bit of what we call your choose your own adventure. So what we do here is when you sign up, you can have the choice to say, do you want us to actually send you a weekly update or fortnightly update and give you some expectation as to where you should be and are you getting through? Or are you simply going to go through at your own pace? Now, if you do ask for that assisted model, you have the ability, once we actually send you some emails, if you kind of feel like you're on top of things, you can opt out of that assisted option at any point in time. But it's a good little prompter just to make sure, because quite often we get 3 months down the track and all best intentions sort of go out the window. So therefore, making sure we're setting some expectations with you is certainly a way to go, which is why quite often we recommend the add-on, because it not only gives you the extra time if you need to complete it, but it also provides you with the opportunity to tap into those ongoing changes that you see as well. So we've kind of covered all bases here in terms of feedback. We'll touch on how you can ask that. And then naturally, once it is being completed, whether you've completed that within a month or 4 months, you'll get some feedback from us about how you went through the course. And we ask for you to provide that feedback back to us in terms of the value that it provided. So the only other thing is just making sure we do have a double opt-in service. So you will need to confirm your email address in addition to obviously the other login emails that you will get. So if you are a first-time subscriber to our database as a result of this, just to make sure all the emails actually land in your inbox and not in any spam filters, that double opt-in actually applies. So let's go in and have a look now at the course and try and spend some time identifying what the course looks like, where you need to go, and whatever else I need to cover. So I'm going to go back just before we jump into the course more specifically. So this is our learning page dashboard. So you can log in from our learn.smartersmsf.com and it will take you into this dashboard page. You can also, when you log in, you can log into our main app, which of course allows you to order documents. And the navigation on the left-hand side here gives you access to the relevant parts of the website. We also have a dashboard on here that takes you into the content that you'll be able to access. So for members that have access to our webinars, for example, our CPD members, everything is in essence locked down based upon the subscription tags that you have access to. So from a Foundations course point of view, you would simply access the course here, and you'll see in here the available courses and modules around this. And then once you open up the Foundations course, you can see on here the welcome screen. Now, a couple of things to note on here. Obviously, we're going through and making the relevant changes around the rebranding, as I said before. But you can see under here, each of the modules is listed. And importantly, we have not only the module detail, but then within each module, you have a CPD assessment that must be completed. So there's not one large assessment that is done at the end. As you work through the modules, we have both interaction within the modules, but then you have the CPD assessment that you complete at the end. So the idea is once you've absorbed the knowledge from that module, you will then go in, complete the assessment, and then move on. Now, you have 2 chances to successfully complete that module, and you have an 80% pass mark, and the number of questions in each module will vary based upon the length of the module. And if we have, for example, 5 questions that you need to answer successfully or from the pool, and they get an 80% pass mark, there isn't just 5 questions. So Tim and I have obviously developed a pool of questions, and they will randomly be asked as part of that assessment. So if you don't successfully complete it within the 2 attempts, naturally you get in contact with us. We'll have a look at it. We'll give you some advice around what you should be going back to and exploring. And then we will then open up the content for you to have a look at again. And the other thing, just to note, as we sort of go through and look at each of those in a bit of detail, is you have that change log that I said before, that you can then go in and see what changes are being made on a year-by-year basis. So you'll see that one shortly that we'll be adding into here as well. So I'm going to pick on probably lesson 3 here around the contribution rules, just for the sake of looking at anyone. It doesn't really matter at this point in time. What you will see here is that the presentation will recognize where you were last at. So if you're working through a module and you don't complete it, you may be busy, you may not have the time to work through it in its entirety, you do have the ability to pick up from where you previously left off. Now, I'm not going to do that here. And what you can see is the commencement of that module. And we have a few bits of navigation that you can see on the bottom of the screen. You can obviously resize this. It is all mobile responsive. It is a combination of audio, video, and written material. So we cover all of the different ways in which people learn and identify in learning. And you can go backwards and forwards in terms of accessing that content as well. So it is designed in a way that enables you to apply the best way of learning that you feel you can adapt to. So I'm just going to turn the audio off so they don't have to hear you all right, Tim, as we work through this. A couple of other things to note. There'll be details if you need to contact us. You can do that via email here. You can also do it through the chat area as well. So you can ask questions specifically, the inquiry you might have, and then naturally we'll come back to you with that. And then within every module, we do have a resources area. So the resources area covers the written materials. So each module has its own workbook. So you'll be able to go in and read all of the information that we have naturally covered inside of the module. So you can see in here, we have a lot of detail when that wants to actually load up in a second. Might just download that quickly to have a... Oh, there we go. There it is. Okay, so we'll have our course overview. We can see the topics that are covered, the activities, which are all naturally inside of the course itself. So you've got reference material here that you equally have access to, in addition to the content that you see on the page here as well. So all you're doing is literally just navigating your way through the topics. Some areas you might have greater understanding and coverage on already. The process here and the guidance that we have around hours is simply that. It is a recommendation of time that you would spend completing this module, having no understanding of any prior knowledge that you may have or may not have on a topic. So therefore, if you need to spend 3 or 4 hours on a topic because of the fact that you're not across it, that is fine. But equally, if you only need to spend an hour and a half, a lot of it is going to boil down to the interaction within the slides to confirm that you understand those rules, and then naturally what occurs within the CPD assessment. Because again, if you can pass that, you have the appropriate knowledge to then be able to move on and look at the other content that is covered. So again, I won't go through in great detail. You do actually have the ability to search over topics as well. So if I on concessional, so there, need the dash, but you can see a range of topics that obviously talk to non-concessional contributions, or it may be catch-up concessional contributions. So things are equally searchable. Download, you've got links. We also have a range of flowcharts or other things that you've got access to on here as well. And as I said before, there will be some interactions within these, not only talking to the rules, but allowing you to go in and actually might go down to activity 2 in here. So you can go backwards and forwards on things. But one of the things in here is to make sure that you understand the rules that we have just worked through. So we've spoken previously about the changes to the work test in here. And we have different references and audio that you can listen to and understand, plus in the resources. And then we try and validate that learning for you in here to see whether he would be eligible in this instance to be able to make the contribution or not. So you can see there's a lot of detail in here. It is all mobile responsive, so you have the ability to look at this, whether it's on a tablet, mobile phone, on a PC or laptop. You can see here how all that changes, and then obviously optimizing out to a full screen as well. So once you work through that module, then what you can see in here is that it then takes you to the assessment that is relevant here. And as I touched on before, you're required to answer, in this instance, 8 questions from a sample, and you have that 80% pass mark and go from there. So the quiz will commence. You go through and you complete the activity that is within here. Some of it might need a little bit of work for you to do. And then once you go through, you can see that 15-minute time limit that is there. And then it will provide you with the score once you have actually completed that particular process itself. So once you have gone through and navigated through, in essence, modules 1 through to 7, You will then, and you've completed both the assessment and also the module in its own right, or the lesson as it's noted, you will then see here, upon completion, the ability to earn your certificate. And from there, you'll also see the activity is completed at 100%, and it then allows you to simply download your certificate based upon the time stamping of the date when that course was completed as well. So you can see in here, for me, it was completed in November 2022, and you'll see all the mapping and knowledge areas that are in here from a point of view of having completed that particular course as well. So I don't know, Tim, if there's anything else you wanted to sort of add in here. I know you've been spending a lot of time in here, but in essence, this format, most importantly, I think for people to understand, is going to be the format that we apply for all of our course content. And it enables you to get a consistency in learning if you're working your way through. But again, I think this e-learning approach is something that we're going to be spending more and more time on because it is the way in which we can provide education in a way that kind of, like we said, suits all ways of learning. I'm a visual person. I don't know what you are, Tim, if you're more a reader, a listener, or a visual. But again, when I sort of built this, a lot of it sort of lit up for me when we could interplay a lot of the video versus audio content. And then the written content's actually the hardest content for me to put together, funnily enough.
Yeah, well, I think the funny thing is that I never considered myself to be visual, and then I started working with you, and I've got no choice but to become very, very visual. But I've always, and I think this is why we work well together, is that whilst it's not the most enjoyable of tasks, I've always been one to put a lot of the detail down into the content, so the written material.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the value, in addition to the immediate learning you get from the visualization and the audio and the videos and all those sorts of things, the fact that that's then compounded with the resource booklet that we provide, and that currently sits between 250 and 300 pages worth of additional resources. Yep. And all of the resources that we then reference in the material are also then accessible via links in those sort of interactive PDF documents. So, yep. For me, often I will find that, listening and being engaged that way is a great way to obtain the information, and then to go back and to do a deep dive, which is always how I've approached things myself, is just hugely beneficial. So when we talk about, the timeframes and the 4 months, well, once you've downloaded that resource, you've got that forever. As well. And so whilst we appreciate that the currency can change, it just provides that knowledge bank, that knowledge base that can see you sort of continue to grow your knowledge once you finish the course.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's go back to our presentation slides, and I guess just have a bit of a discussion about what we've seen over the couple of years now that we have the course. And there are two parts to this, because one is the onboarding of students from our side, but obviously staff into an organization when they are coming on board into a role that involves self-managed superannuation fund work. And what we've been able to see here, and we've had this validated through a number of organizations that we now work with, and in particular larger ones where there's a process around induction and that measurement of time, is we know that the organizations that we work with don't necessarily all have training managers and training programs and those sorts of things. So they're time poor to be able to do a transfer of knowledge onto staff to be able to get them up to speed to be able to do their job. So one of the things, and I was only having a conversation with someone yesterday who's actually looking at this course for potentially 90 or 100 staff within their organization, and it's actually offshore, is the fact that students can get that accelerated learning. So this is where we pitch this, is obviously in the education, technical and regulatory piece. So we're not looking at process around administration of a fund and that sort of thing. There are regulatory roles and responsibilities and those sort of things that we talk about, but it's not a process sort of driven course. It's about understanding and equipping you around the rules. So what we have identified though is that this does naturally accelerate the learning curve of those staff. And this was evident in a lot of the work that we've done with BGL, because BGL use this within their technical support team and across a number of staff. And what has been really crucial within that organization is that their frontline staff, who get questions obviously daily and hundreds of times daily, potentially given the number of clients, is going through this course and then top and tailing it with more specific product content that they use, has enabled them to accelerate the onboarding of those support team by about a month when they've compared to the processes that they've done historically. So that acceleration of learning is crucial from the point of view of students coming on, and they feel better equipped to get themselves underway and do the job that they've come in to be employed to do. The other side, which I think is as equally important, is the role that a person is playing inside the organization. And again, as I said before, this is not about every organization having a training manager and having a training plan. And ultimately what that means is that someone has to take responsibility in their organization. And it generally ends up with the manager or someone in their manager level staff that has to take on board that role of actually doing the training. So you don't want them to becoming the teacher where they're literally sitting down and having to explain everything to that particular person. And because there's an opportunity cost that's presented on the flip side to that. So what we're trying to do is utilize the expertise that we have within Smarter SMSF, both Tim and myself, and that content, making sure that content is mapped correctly to the student that is coming on, which again is why we're doing some changes around the 3 limbs, I guess, to our course content going forward. Because what we have seen historically is that if we take that shift of the manager from a teacher rather than to a mentor, we see a time saving of around $4,000 to $6,000, naturally based upon charge rates here, because you're saving the time having to educate that person, that student or students going through and doing the work. And instead, you're talking to them about the on-the-job training, or it's, Tim, I don't understand. Can you explain to me a little bit more? I know what Aaron and Tim have said here, but I just can't get the context of it. So therefore, you're spending some time more specific to that particular task rather than having to go through and deliver, in essence, that 20 hours of education or more, and not actually having all the content and support materials that would come with that education. So there's definitely more autonomy for the student to learn and develop, and therefore less dependency upon the manager. That manager is really just focused on the gaps and what the expectation is within the organization and about doing the job, which then frees up that manager to make sure they're doing what they need to. And then we have a range of ongoing packages to be able to further support and enhance that team knowledge. And again, it's about not having to build that internal dependency around what needs to be done, and ultimately allowing those in the business to be able to focus naturally on what they do best, and that is engaging with the clients and tapping in to the opportunities that exist within those clients as well. So from a pricing point of view, with our Essentials course, we're not going to be making any changes to that pricing around our SMSF Essentials course that's obviously being rebranded at this point in time. The same goes with our add-on update, which would be at $180 plus GST when it's purchased at the same time. So there is a 10% discount that is applied. We will be talking more about the repositioning and pricing of our SMSF Foundations course over the coming months. And then equally, we'll be talking to the pricing around the modules and our advanced course in the back half of this year. And whether you are looking at this for one team member, potentially yourself, or multiple team members, of course, you can go and access that directly from within the platform that we showed you before. but we do have an enterprise solution as well. And this is where there are more than potentially 20 users in the business. So we can actually provide those files that we have around the course to larger organizations and have that in essence in a white label situation. It can be self-hosted via your learning management system, or you can utilize the learning platform that we have available, and then we would send that reporting to you on a monthly basis around the progress of the relevant team members. But we have a number of firms that we are working with already that we give them those files and we maintain and manage those files. They get uploaded into the internal learning management system, and then that is tracked internally as well. Things like the content updates and logs of the changes, all those things for compliance purposes is naturally provided. And there is naturally also white label priority support. And we use this for TOA Global or their AB2 Institute, like I said before, with ASF audits, BGL, and a range of others as well. So I guess the last couple of slides here, just around some common FAQs that we have. If you are looking to utilize the course and you potentially want to have it as a training piece inside your organization, the most important thing to note is that the CPD will only be provided for the person that has registered. So if you've got multiple team members that you might want to use this in group training, we can't stop and prevent you from doing that, but not everyone is naturally going to get the CPD off the back of that. So it is a one-for-one course when you go and purchase that. In terms of access to the course, you have that for 4 months, as we've stated earlier in today's presentation. If you want to go beyond that, our add-on is available, so you can use that to keep that currency of knowledge up to date. Now, we also note that there are circumstances where people are busy, they might be away, they might be ill, whatever the situation may be. All we ask is just get on the phone or drop us a note and obviously explain to us what the issue is and why you might need that extension. And then 99 times out of 100, we're naturally going to go through and give you maybe that extra month that you need to get through it. We're not here to sort of turn the tap off and sort of hold you out in that regard. We talked a little bit about the certificate of completion before. That will come once you've gone through and successfully navigated each and all of those 7 modules. We've spoken a little bit about today the updating of the course content and how you know. So our change log is imperative there. We do communicate out to you what that change log is. So all of the students that are in will provide you with an email to explain that. And then naturally on the front page of the course, we update that information as well. In terms of individual modules, some of these topics we do make available individually. Our Foundations course, once we recut that, will literally just stay as a course. Some of the Essentials and then Advanced course, we may look to modularize those, as we stated earlier. Again, we'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. And in terms of multiple purchases, yes, more than happy to have a discussion subject to the number of individuals that may be looking to complete that course as well. And again, we have a number of documents that are available for you to be able to access and get underway. And I didn't show this before, so I might jump over back to the site again. So we have things like our user guide as well. So when you go into here, you can see and click on that user guide, and it gives you full description of the detail, how you can access that self-directed path or send me the reminders that you can see there. The login takes you into the Smarter SMSF platform. You can see there, flips you over into the learning platform, into the courses. And again, you can see all the different outcomes that we've gone through in here today. So we've got you fully equipped to be able to get you started, get you underway, and give you the support that you need throughout the completion of our SMSF Essentials course. So let's just go back and wrap up today's session. So the only other thing I just wanted to say is once you complete the course, we do actually have a range of other solutions that are available around keeping currency of your SMSF obligations. So we do have a number of ongoing CPD training subscriptions, whether that's done at an individual level or you want to look at that within the firm. So we do have our CPD quarterly, which is literally sort of 6 to 8 hours each year, all the way through to our CPD regular and business, which is sort of banking anywhere between 15 to 18 plus hours each and every year as well. We do, in addition to our online training, offer our face-to-face events, SMSF Day, which we do right around the country in March, April each year. And Tim, one of the things we are introducing this year, of course, is our virtual SMSF masterclasses. So we do have our first one coming up on the 30th of August, where we're looking at our annual compliance masterclass. So the idea, I guess, again, with you coming on board is rather than maybe just focusing on 1 hour webinars, we're going to be using some case study based content to really pick the eyes out of different topics and help people to dive a little deeper than you might within a 1 hour webinar as well.
Absolutely. Sorry, absolutely. And I think, the key is from like the whole keeping up to date piece, and whether it be this course or our ongoing CPD training, I think that's the relevance of what we bring with these products is that we've all seen courses. And I remember when I had to undertake my own accreditation course years ago, an employer made me do, and I went and did the course, which was 2 years old. And so in all my answers, I gave the answers that they needed to hear. And I also gave them the answers based on the law as it currently stood at the time and said, perhaps you might want to update your material. And so I think that's probably one of the most critical sort of comments I can make about our course and our content, knowing that we are currently updating it, is that ability for us to be up to the minute with our information is pretty critical for the learning outcomes of individuals wanting to progress in the SMSF space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, in addition to that regular online face-to-face sort of events, we do run a range of webinars, and this is a good example today where we do these sort of product demos, but a lot of those as well, we're trying to link what we call the technical to the practical, and in particular with a number of the documents that we have. So some of those webinars are a really good opportunity, don't necessarily attach themselves to CPD, but give you some context as to why certain documents are relevant and have been created. So things like our Smarter SMSF deed. We've also looked at changes to trustees, costs and risks in managing your own templates and those sorts of things. And of course, we're writing regularly, we're presenting regularly. So we've got a range of other content that you can see, and therefore recommend that you go to our calendar of events page, because we are literally updating that multiple times each and every year, and you can download the calendar and access what training that we are looking to provide. So if you've got any interest, obviously, in our suite of courses and content, and you're ready to get started, we do have our course page. So it's smartersmsf.com/course. You can also give us a call. You can speak to David, and he'll be more than happy to give you a bit more of an explanation, take you through a demo if you need to, find out more from today's session as well. So that's it from me, Tim. Thank you once again for being a part of this. And obviously, we look forward to sharing the evolution of this course content over probably the next 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6 months as we sort of move from our foundations course to an essentials course, back to a foundations course, and then up to an advanced course as well. So I'm really excited by what we're sort of putting together here. It does become somewhat unique in the marketplace, and therefore, in our view, gives a real and true pathway for those looking to dip their toe into the SMSF sector, all the way through to those that really want to be at the cutting edge of strategies and issues, whether you're an auditor, a financial planner, an accountant, or other service provider in the industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to it too, other than all of the writing.
Yeah, correct. All right, well, that's it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now. Other than that, we will leave it there and have a great rest of the day. Thanks again, Tim. Cheers.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. Bye.